Ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurs from all over the world, please make welcome the truth guy, Mr. Home-Based Business himself. The man of the hour, everyone's favorite, Carrie Miller.
And here we are, man, what an exciting day it is. We've got a woman that is absolutely like thebomb.com. She's coming on. You can see this little banner on the bottom. These are the places that has talked to her, or she's done interviews. She's all over the map. She's the person everybody needs. I can tell you that now. If you're not organized, if you're not anything in your life, you need to listen to Deb. Without question, she is super awesome. I have got to know her through just tweeting and chatting. And today, I'm so excited we get to bring her on board and as our special guest. By the end of this call, you're going to say, wow, I need that in your life. And what's really cool, she's got a couple of special late Christmas gifts for us. And we're going to be sharing that with you. We'll be sharing some links down in the description where you can go and get those. And without further ado, I have to bring on, without question, probably one of the smartest women I've met with organization, Deb. And here she is.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
We're excited to have you. You know, there's one thing, and we were talking pre-show, and I told her, she learned real quick that Carrie's the most unorganized human being on the face of the earth. And you know, it's amazing because we talk about this, and we always say we're going to get better at it.
Yes.
And we're going to share a couple of things later on, Deb, with our audience, and thank you for allowing us to do that.
I'm sure.
On ways to help you become better organized. But Deb is the master at technology, and she has figured it out. She's a productivity consultant and has been for over 12 years, working with countless small business owners all over the world to help them refine, listen to what I'm fixing to say, people, refine their workflow, focus, laser focus on the right things at the right time. Why? Because we know today we need to be more efficient, without question. We have to be as efficient as we can. So, Deb, welcome. And
thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
And a pleasure to be here. It was great chatting with you off screen too, backstage. So glad to be here.
She's already helped me. So, Deb, one thing we like to do here at The Truth Guy, and it's very important that I think for our listeners, but not only for our listeners, for people who are going to pick up the phone and say, Deb, I need your help, is they know who you are. So tell me a little bit about you. Let's go back a few years. Let's roll back and start, in the beginning. What took you to the place you are today? Who those important people were? Who was your mentors? And who got you where you are today?
Okay, so that might take a little bit longer than what we have today, but I'll give you the quick version. So, growing up, I thought I would be a psychologist. I planned to be a pediatric psychologist, and I decided I would, enter into a pre-med program when I was in college. I grew up in New York. I went to NYU. So the campus, the city was my campus. It was just real life. And so I discovered really quickly that chemistry and biology and calculus and physics all in the same semester probably hurt my brain more than I wanted them to. And so I made a little detour. It was probably one of the first pivots in my life. Something I had dreamed about doing, I had to let it go and move on to something else. So I dropped the pre-med and I kept the psychology, which was a really brilliant move for someone of that age at that time. I didn't realize it then, but by letting go of what wasn't serving me and what wasn't helping me to be back then be productive, a productive student, it really was a turning point. It was huge. So I kept the psychology, got the psychology degree, and then I thought, well, what does one do with a psychology degree? Maybe I should get a PsyD or a PhD. And then I ended up pivoting once again, and I got a master's in education instead. It didn't require the GREs, which was, at the time I was deathly afraid of that test, that exam, for whatever reason. And so it made sense to me just to segue. It still connected me to my previous dream of working with children in some way. And then I became a teacher, which was great.
Wow.
That really worked out well for me. And then I worked for a company that helped me to marry teaching with business. And one of the first people that I met, her name is Rosemary Giordano. I will never forget her. She started that company. She was this small. Her clients were this big. They were huge clients, but she was a tiny company. And I learned a lot of what I know now from her, not because she sat down with me and told me everything, but because she showed up, she was present, and I observed, I watched, I listened, and I took every opportunity to see what she was doing and also to learn from that. So I worked for that company for a really long time until they were sold and bought out. And then I had to pivot again. Do I stay with the new company, or do I go off and do something else? And of course, as you guessed, I went off and I did something else. I became what is known as a professional organizer. So I would go into people's offices and in their homes, and I would help them to organize their stuff, because the stuff was cluttering their environment and not helping them, that is, to be productive. And they would lose sight of their time. Where did the time go? So all this physical stuff would just invade their space. And I would go in and say, oh, look at what we could do here to organize the space and to let go of what's not serving you anymore. It may have served you back then, and maybe you spent a ton of money on it, but right now, today, it's no longer serving you. And so I did that for a while. And then I had my first child. And as you guessed it, I needed to pivot again. And so what I noticed was those clients who had physical clutter, they also had those issues with the time management and the productivity. And so I really started focusing on that. But all through all of that, I had a love of technology. So I sort of put those two things together. And I am now a digital productivity coach, the person that you see sitting here, but it didn't happen in a very straight line. It was very circuitous. And some of it was really just opportunity and taking chances and taking a calculated risk, and letting go of what no longer served me. So
let's talk about that. Let's talk about a couple of things that you said, because I believe personally, people's biggest issues in business is being able to let go, being able to realize they need a shift, being able to realize they need to pivot. Absolutely. And they get stuck. And then what happens is their productivity falls.
Yes.
Their business starts to fail, and they can't figure out why. And it's because they did not make a pivot. They couldn't make that change. I mean, you've had multiple pivots.
Yes.
And each time you pivoted, your success rose. And
it helped because you recognize the need for it. And that's where that failure comes in. I think when we don't recognize it, or we do and we ignore it for a while.
Do you think that what is it in your educational statistics are phenomenal? I mean, you've been there. And what can I ask, what grade did you teach?
So I was a special ed teacher. So they were kids. Wow. It was a mixed age group. So we were talking probably anywhere from pre-K to say maybe 1 to 2. And then when I left that teaching environment and I went to the business one, it was a range of kids, infants all the way through school age.
So let me ask you a question, because you just touched my heart.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional guy. That's probably had to have been one of the most rewarding challenges.
Oh, wow.
In your move.
Yeah.
And probably the greatest teaching vessel that you had. Could you talk about that just a moment? Just how that molded you to look at things the way you do today?
Well, I think we tend to be internal. A lot of us, we look at our own experiences, and we make judgments about the world based on those. experiences. But when you're working with children and children with challenges and their families, you start seeing the world is no longer so narrow. It starts to widen a bit, and you start building up some muscles. Maybe it's an empathy muscle that you start to build, or perhaps it's one that is more patient, one that is more considerate and understanding, though it's not your experience anymore, it's someone else's. You can see yourself or someone in your life in that situation, and it just opens up your heart. So I know we're here to talk about productivity, but productivity doesn't happen without that heart piece either. There's a bit of, it's heart-centric. Your mind and your heart have to be in it and ready to go. So that experience of working with special needs children and their families, because it was, for those families, they didn't have all the resources that they needed. And as a special needs teacher, I was hoping to fill some of those voids, even as a student teacher. It wasn't my own classroom yet. I was, sort of the understudy in the class with the regular teacher. And even then, there were things I just had not been exposed to before. I also worked in an autistic nursery at a hospital in New York, and seeing the challenges and how difficult it was, it just made you also appreciate all the things that were going right. And it helped you to appreciate the baby steps and the small incremental steps of progress that were made, because they weren't always big. We might be teaching children how to push their chair under when they sit and get up, or to take their plate from the table to the kitchen sink. And sometimes that took weeks, sometimes it took months, but when it happened, the celebration was grand. And so to even now in my own work, when those baby steps happen, you just celebrate those moments. We don't lose sight of that progress. Even if it's one step or 1 inch forward or a large leap forward, it's progress, and we should celebrate all of them. So I hope I answered the question. I mean, it started sort of, coming through how it affected me, but it sort of impacts my life now, even now.
And I'm a firm believer that we learn from one another. And that's one of the reasons I like learning about people, because if people will have conversation and dialogue, they can learn so much to see in ourselves where we need to go and some of the things we need to do. And you said something very important. And I talk about this all the time when I talk to my clients and when I speak to people, and even when I'm speaking to stage. And I always let them know, if you're not passionate about what you do, success in that arena will never come, because it's just a wake up in the morning. They call that a job.
It would be a job. It won't be fulfilling.
No.
So I would say passion is a key ingredient. It's not the only one, of course.
Right.
But it is a key ingredient. There is some kind of connection that you need to have to what you're doing, with what you're doing. And if it's not there, you probably need to pivot. It's probably time.
That word's going to be in my brain for the rest of my life. I can't need to pivot.
Shift, a sidestep, a shuffle, a pivot, however you want to call it, a dance,
right.
You kind of have to, as long as that movement is forward, right? We don't really want to be going backward per se. When we're looking back, we should look back at what we've accomplished and look back at lessons learned, right? So look back, but don't spend all day gazing backward and wishing for what happened then. Turn your eyes forward. So whether you're shifting, pivoting, even if it's lateral, you should be on a trajectory forward or up. So to sort of be aware of where you are and where you want to go.
That is so brilliant. That's like brilliance above brilliance, because I think as humans we get so stuck. I mean, when most people, when they fall and they have the arrows in their back and they can't move forward, it's like over. But if they would look at that as that learning experience and just, like you say, look back at the successes and take that as the motivation and the power to move you forward, I think that's so important. Well,
absolutely.
Deb Lee, my new best friend, we're going to take about a 30-second break, because I want to tell everybody how they can get these tools right here, 5 must-have tech tools. Go virtual with the best tech tools. And I know that you talked about the insatiable desire for technology in your life. So we're going to take about a 30-second break and tell people how they can get this, and we'll be right back.
Thank you for watching and/or Libcast with special guest Deb Lee, your digital productivity consultant. Be sure to download her gift to you, 5 must-have tech tools to go virtual with your company. The link is in the description. Now here is Mr. Home-Based Business, the Truth Guy, Carrie Miller, and special guest, Deb Lee.
Okay, and we are back with Deb Lee. Guys, you have got to bookmark this session because there's so many golden nuggets falling out of this. We're going to have to take it to Fort Knox to lock it away. Listen, there's as always, the first half of the show was really heartfelt, and one thing we try to do here at The Truth Guy is bring people that will absolutely tell you the truth. Now, sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes we don't want to hear the truth. Sometimes we say, oh, that's such bull, I'll just keep on with my life. But as we were just talking during the break, conversation is everything. Yeah. Listen, there's the old saying, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen and learn. So in this section, we're going to talk about, I want to talk about the organization as a business. Yep. And the things that you see that we can share with our listeners on some of the things we can do in our lives to help organize ourselves to where we are more productive. So that 2021, we went through a tough year. Everybody knows that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we kind of got, we kind of pivoted in the wrong direction many times because we didn't make the right pivot to take us to where we needed to go, to make the adjustments in our business, to continue to be successful, even though it was the hard decision. Yeah. So talk to us about the things that we as business owners need to look for, and some of the pivots we need to make in order to make 2021 a more profitable year for all the entrepreneurs out there.
Well, one of the first things I think, and perhaps the main thing I think people need to do, is to assess. We recently talked about looking back at those successes, but looking back at lessons learned. Sometimes people call those things failures, right? But they are really lessons learned. Either you win or you learn. You learn from the experience. It might be painful in that moment, and it may be difficult in that moment to see what the lesson might be, but to take that to build your roadmap forward. I often encourage people to use themselves as the benchmark and not the competition per se, right? Obviously be aware of your competitors. I'm not saying to ignore that data. Definitely get that data. But what did you do last year? What were the milestones that you were hoping to achieve that you did achieve, and how can you capitalize on that? What were the milestones that you did not get to but were oh so close, or maybe you were just further than you wanted to be? How will you adjust for that? Are those milestones still the same? Those goals, are they still the same, or have they changed? And is it all right that it has changed? And the answer probably should be yes, because if it has changed for a reason, look at those reasons and then make a better decision based on that. So my first thing would be to assess. Look at where you are. Take a good hard look. Look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, the parts that you don't want to see, the parts that you're like, oh, no. Oh, that was awful. Look at it all. Look at it all with, great attention and purpose, and knowing that you're going to take this to then, number 2, create a plan. So, when I first started my company, everybody needed a business plan. Well, it's daunting. It could be multiple pages. You have to think about so many different things. So take a small part, right? We talked about baby steps before. So make a plan, get an idea in your head about where you want to go, and then walk yourself backward in time to figure out how you're going to get there. So a plan, though, needs to have some deadlines. Otherwise, they'll just float about in the universe, kind of nebulous, and they float around and we don't get to them. But when you put on your calendar, I have to do this by X date, and then you walk your way back and you make a plan to get to that date and to complete that milestone, then you have a greater chance of actually reaching that goal.
That's right.
Right? So assess, create a plan, and then number 3, get a tribe that will support you,
That's
right? It could be friends, it could be family, it could be a coach like myself, it could be a combination of people, a mastermind group, an accountability partner, someone who's going to hold your feet to the fire, tell you the truth, not yell, not scream, unless you like yelling and screaming, but someone who's going to really tell you the truth and push you to say, well, what's your next step? And how will you get there? When will you get there? And who do you need to help you to get that done? When will you reach out to them? What will you say? What if they don't get back to you? Then who do you talk to? Someone who's really going to walk you through that so that you don't just throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, I tried. I'm done. It didn't work. You need that tribe to say, oh, no, we're not done yet, right? The goal might change. The path might change. The goal might stay the same. It could be the reverse. But to have a tribe that sort of flexes with you as your path winds and turns, or maybe goes straight. Most of our paths never go straight. They're very circuitous. They go around in circles sometimes. It can feel like the life of an entrepreneur is just, up and down.
That's right.
But stick with it if you do have that passion, if you do have the right people around you, if you've gotten all the data you need to make that plan, you have a solid plan, you know how to execute. So that's what I would say people should do.
And I analyze everything. Sometimes I overanalyze things. I have whiteboards and wireframes,
Guilty.
And I've got notebook. People don't use notebooks anymore. I've got notepads everywhere. I've got one by my bed. I'm constant at 3:00 in the morning. But that is so important that we analyze, that we take an analysis of where we've been and where we're going.
Absolutely. Yeah, when someone says they want to be more productive or to manage their time, well, let's look at the data. How do you get the data? Well, you track your time. What did I do from 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. all the way till 8 p.m. at night? And what did I do the next day? And you do that for a while. You have to track and gather the intel, if you will.
That's right.
To determine the next course of action, right? So definitely.
And business owners, for some reason, they don't realize that data does not lie. Statistical data that is tracked over a period of time. Your friends can tell you everything's okay, you're good, and there's always that comforter, if you will.
Yep.
But the data doesn't lie. And if the data tells you to pivot or to shift or to move or to make a change, you better do it.
Cut it loose.
Yeah.
Do it in however way you can. But yes, it's time. Absolutely.
And you need that person that tells you that. You truly do, whether it be a Deb Lee or someone in your life, that coach, that mentor, that can sit down and help you analyze that and say, hey, you've got to make a change or you're going to go broke. People don't want to hear that. Oh, no, I'm not going broke. I've got it under control. No, you're going broke.
Well,
and we don't want them to do that.
You might have it under control right now, but what the data might be telling you is, a little down the way there, a little a week or two, a month, a year, 6 months, you may want to reassess at that point. So there's just because you assessed, 6 months ago doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it again right now. Just to see where you are and how close are you to where you want to be. And where you want to be might shift ever so slightly, or it could be that stays, but you need to bring in some resources, some people to help you get there. So making that assessment is really crucial. Very, very important.
Let's talk about that for a moment, resources. And I know during 2020, it was tough to say, I can afford resources, but really, and this is just my viewpoint as an entrepreneur, and as I tell people, hey, I'm successful, so I've lived the life, I've done it, I've fallen, I've picked myself up, I've evaluated, I've done that. You have to say at a point in your life, in your business, I have to have someone to help me evaluate.
Yeah.
And you have to budget for that. And that has to be a part of your plan, if you will. That has to be a part of your future, that you have to bring outside eyes in and say, hey, let's take a look at everything, and people are afraid to do that. What do you say to that person who says, gosh, I can't afford to do that,
Well, you can't
what would
afford
you
not
say?
to.
That's my thought.
That's the
Absolutely.
cliche response. You can't afford not to. But listen, I was one of those people too. In the beginning, it's just, it's me. I'm a solopreneur. I still am a solopreneur. But the difference between who I am today and who I was back then was that I tried to do everything on my own, and it was overwhelming, and it wasn't serving me. Right? I could do it. That's how I learned a lot about technology and how technology could help me to do certain things. But invariably, we need people. And sometimes it's a group of people. So right now, I have someone who does some marketing things for me. I have someone that does specific marketing things for me. I have someone who does Facebook ads. I'm not a Facebook ads person, and am I willing to learn how to do that? No, I am not. I am so not there. I can't build a website. I mean, I could pull something together and it would look okay, but so that's not me. I pull other people in to help me with that. I don't like doing the books. Bookkeeping is not my thing. I like seeing money in the bank, and I'm glad it's there. I don't want to deal with the parts of it that I have to track. So
Right.
I have someone who takes care of that. I just, there are just certain things that I'm not willing to do. But you know what? I am the person who answers my emails. I am the person that you see on social media. I don't have a person who is sharing on my behalf. Whenever you get a response, it really is from me. And so I make the time to do that. And sometimes I don't have time, and sometimes I do. And I work with that. I work with what I have. So build your tribe now. Don't wait until you're desperate or at that moment where, you just can't wait any longer and things are already shaking and falling apart. Build the tribe now while you can, and do bits and pieces. You're either going to spend time or you're going to spend money, right? So you can spend the time learning how to use lead pages, and you can hate it because you have no clue what's going on, or you can hire someone to do it for you.
That's right.
You can go the route of Fiverr. You can go into a Facebook group and say, hey, anybody here know how to do this? And invariably 10 people will say, yes, we do. So you're either spending the money to have it done and have it done quickly by someone who knows what they're doing, or you spend your time and you, dare I say, waste your time and maybe not do it as well as it should be done. So build a tribe from the beginning. I wish I had done that myself. I wasn't so fearful about, well, I don't have a lot of money right now and I'm just starting, and all of that sort of, colors your judgment. So where I sit today, listen, I'll find the pennies to put them together so that I don't have to spend the gobs and gobs of hours, right? We're talking, so time is money, right? Every minute you spend trying to learn something that you're not good at. I'm not saying you shouldn't be aware of how it works, but if you're not good at it and someone else is and they can do it in a half hour and it's taking you 2, well, that data is telling you something as well, right?
Right. I truly believe, and I tell people, I charge $250 an hour to consult you, so my time's worth $250 an hour. And based on that fact, if it costs me $100 to get it done, I'm going to spend $100 to get it done. I mean, because I'm making money at that point, and people need to realize they have to sit down and evaluate themselves. What is my time worth? What is every waking minute that I work? What is that time worth? And if your worth is more than what you have to, then pay somebody to do it, because you're making money at that point, And I know people are afraid to do that because they think, oh, I can jump in here and build a 10-page website in 2 days. I know that doesn't happen because I build websites. It doesn't happen.
No, well, not a good 10-page website.
No, that's right.
Right? Not a good. So again, think about how you want to be perceived in the marketplace. Do you want to be perceived as a person who that website now reflects the 10 pages that you couldn't do very well, or do you want to be perceived as someone who is professional and thoughtful and can get the job done? And
Absolutely.
and how do you want to spend your time? So in the beginning it might truly be difficult. So perhaps you partner with somebody. There could be a bartering arrangement. There could just be a friendly, listen, I will help you with this if you help me with that. Um, and sometimes having those entrepreneur groups, people tend to help each other in ways that, are that they couldn't afford. So there are some ways to get around well, I'm just starting and I really don't have a lot of money. It doesn't mean that you still have to spend gobs and gobs of time doing it on your own. So yeah.
That's kind of an art that's lost today. I barter all the time. If I go to a restaurant that I'm building an app for, and it's a really good restaurant, and their bill is going to be $3,000 a year, and I like to eat their $35 steak. I say, hey, I'll come in once a week and eat, and I'll build your app. And if I bring somebody, and I have multiple places, 5 stars that I can go to and walk out. And of course, I tip the waiter or waitress, but but shoot, man, bartering is great in today's society. It's a lost art, but do that. We're going to take one more break because we're going to give away one more Christmas present for you guys. It's it's 5 days late, but that's okay. Christmas presents are always good. And so we're going to show you how you can download and get this time tracking worksheet from Dee. And I wanted to ask her about her middle name when we get back. So, but you're going to be able to download this right from the page. The links will be in the description down below, and we'll be back in about, I don't know, maybe about 15, 20 seconds.
Thank you for watching and/or Libcast. It is time to start the new year off on the right foot. Click below in the description to get your free download for your free time tracking worksheet. Learn how to eliminate time wasters. Make a plan to create your ideal work schedule, and reclaim your time and boost your productivity in the new year. Now here is Mr. Home-Based Business, the Truth Guy Carrie Miller, and special guest, Deb Lee.
Okay, and welcome back to the Truth Guy Podcast with our special guest, Deb Lee. And I said before the break I was going to ask her a question because her middle name is everywhere. Actually, I love her middle name. It's Allison. And so tell us about your middle name. You some things you use it on, some things you don't. Some things is D. Allison. Okay. What do you like to be called?
All right. So most people call me Deb. Just about everybody in my life, whether it's a personal person or business acquaintance, everybody calls me Deb. But most times when people see my logo, they don't see the D. They just see Allison. So I was purposeful in putting D. Allison. I thought it's, back then when I did it, probably, I don't know, that was 2006 when that logo was created. I decided I wanted it to just sound a little different than what I had been hearing around me. Back then I was a professional organizer, and I didn't want to have organizer in my company name. So I used my name, and I just used a version of that. So sometimes clients call me Allison and I answer to it, but after a while they start sort of using Deb. So Allison, and I do answer, I pretty much answer to anything, especially that. But yes, most people call me Deb.
I'll show everybody. Let me flip the logo over here real quick. You can see her logo. This is a beautiful, guys, your brand is who you are.
It's
and
me.
You can go in everything that Deb has, and she just talked about the professionality, and that's a window into your business. And I tell people, even when they have an app, when people look at that app, they're looking through your front door, they're looking through your window to see who you are and what you have. And you can see her website going DAllisonLee.com. Please go to her website. You will get so much insight in how to truly have people see your business for who you are, what you are. Her about information is phenomenal. She talks about her business and what she does for people. And she has ways for you to call her, for you to contact her. She is an open book. I will say, and this goes back to what you were saying about she respond. I met Deb on Twitter. And I just started using Twitter, to be honest with you. Matter of fact, Chloe Forbes, Kinlan,
Love Chloe.
love her. She was my first. Spotlight, and and then of course, we talked about you. She said, "Oh, you've got to get Deb. You will just love her." And so, and I did, and I'm so thankful. But you got to be active on social media. And you use the word tribe many times. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that word, it is a today word. So, but it's your circle, the circle of people that you let in. And let me tell you, and I know this is hard for people to hear. Everybody is not a part of your tribe. Everybody does not fit in your circle. You
Correct.
want to think they do, but there's times you have to call. I'm not telling you not to love them, hug them, kiss them, and let them be a part of your life. But when it comes to your business life, when it comes to the truth, you have to make that circle, that tribe, close knit, honest, and real. So, but
Agree.
Deb, let's talk about. We're going to take this last 5-10 minutes, and I
Okay.
want to talk about something that I had saw on your site. Matter of fact, I saw it in your Twitter at first. There's two words that don't coincide in your life, and that's goals. Goals are good, resolutions not. I'm not a resolution person. I make them on the first and I break them on the second. They absolutely take me nowhere. Let's close out with that. And I want you to talk about goals for 2021,
Mhm.
why they need to be specific, why you need to set milestones, and where they need to take you to help you be successful in 2021.
Yes. So just to recap, I am not a fan of resolutions. Resolutions tend to be these very lofty, grand ideas, these things that we move from year to year. It's like when you move something from your to-do list from one day to the next day. Well, your resolutions tend to be these just big, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to eat better and I'm going to cut out all of the sugar. And they're just big, insurmountable, unreasonable, unrealistic resolutions. Things just are, it's just too hard to attain. And so I like to reframe them a bit. I like to call them goals. Sometimes they're micro goals. They're tiny steps that take me to a bigger goal. Sometimes it's a passion that I am exploring and I want to take it down a certain direction. And maybe I frame it in that way because then I have that heart connection, right? It connects directly to me. So for each of us, that's going to be different. So as you start looking forward to 2021, think about the one or two things, not the 10 things, not the 50 things, not the 100 things. Bring it down. One, two, maybe three things that you want to accomplish in the coming year. And then execute that in baby steps, small chunks. Break those big, lofty goals or ideas down into smaller chunks that you can reasonably attain and come up with a plan that is reasonable again for you to execute and to keep up with. So if you want to, lose 100 pounds, are you going to get on the treadmill or go running or go to the gym every day for the next, I don't know how long? Probably not. Some days it's going to be raining. Some days you won't feel like it. But could you start out with 2 days a week? Sure. Could you increase that after, say, maybe a month or 2 to 3 days a week? Yeah, absolutely. So build on your momentum, but be sure that you have a clear understanding of where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and who will help you to get there.
Guys, this is Deb Lee, Deb Allison Lee.
Yep.
She is a productivity consultant, and she is telling us and talking to us and sharing with us how we can become productive. And I want to recap real quick on one thing you just said before we leave.
Yep.
Sometimes when we make goals, we'll make the 10 or 15 things, and we really clutter our minds with too much, and we have too much going on, and we can never achieve anything because and it's important that you have those things prioritized and where they go. But what would someone do who is like that, which is the majority of people really, to be able to narrow down and prioritize their goals and say, okay, these are the three things, this is the top three. And out of that top three, I know that I've got to do these two to be successful this year. What would you say to that entrepreneur?
So I say to that person, if you're coming from 100-thing list, it's okay to do the brain dump. Number one, I'm not saying you can't, sort of reach out and do different things. You may have that sort of capacity, but most of us don't. Right? So if you have the 100-thing list, whittle it down to the top 2 or the top 1, or maybe even if it's, the top 3, but then think about that word I just mentioned, capacity. What is your ability to get to it? And is there a time frame that you need to get to it by? So that usually is the driver, right? It's either money or time, right? So what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What's your deadline? And what resources do you need to help you accomplish that or execute that plan by that said deadline? So as you're looking at it, break it down step by step. And if it takes you a month to do that, that's fine. However long it takes you to, because really what you want is a solid plan. You don't want something that's haphazard. It's good to bring your list down, but that plan that follows and how you're going to execute it and with who's going to be with you on the ride, that's really just as crucial in my mind as coming up with a plan to begin with.
I want to thank you so much. I'm telling you, this has been an amazing show, an amazing time, especially right before I was going to start season 3 of our podcast in January. And when I was reading what you do and the way you have yourself organized, I said, this has got to be on the 30th. People have to hear this before the first of the year. I can't thank you enough for coming in, Deb. It's been a pleasure having you. Give us one parting word that will soak in our hearts and that we can take with us forever.
Stick with it. Don't give up. It's going to get hard. It's going to get bumpy. There are going to be days when you want to throw your hands up in the air, and you will. There are days when you want to pull your hair out, but stick with it. You have all the pieces that you need. The bumps are coming. That's okay. Deal with them as they come. So don't sit back and worry about them either. When they come, deal with them. If you can, forecast a bit so you can manage it before it gets to you. But stick with it. Don't give up.
And with that said, Deb Lee, thank you. And I want to have my good friend Frankie, who I always honor. We lost him back in July for COVID. And take us out of here, Frankie.